And there you have it. The markets are officially closed on this Wednesday, July 17th. Welcome, investors and traders. I'm AJ Monte, and this is the Midweek Report. As you can see here, the diamonds had another big up day, but as I will soon point out to you, the transports were down almost as much. So we had a divergence between the industrials and the transports. And so with that said, you see this drop in volume. Down below at the volume bar, we have about a 20% drop in volume from yesterday, and that caused the CCI down below to pivot lower. The stochastic is still in an overbought condition, but what we have is this wide divergence between the price and the moving average. Therefore, my downside target is still in place at 395.69. Moving on to IWM. We have a similar pattern, although this is a shooting star, a very well-pronounced shooting star, by the way, with a slightly red-bodied candle. You can see that the volume bar is red, and that represents the color of the body. I have those matching. So that's an extremely bearish candle right there. With a series of gaps below the market, there's a greater chance now that the markets will pull back. Therefore, my downside target on IWM is still set at 208.58. Now, moving on to the Qs, you can see here tech had a very rough day. Not only did we hit my downside target there, but if you look more closely, we have almost no shadow on the bottom of that candle on an increase in volume that's more than twice of what we had yesterday. Throughout the entire day, they were leaning on tech. This is just a minute-by-minute chart, and you can see we closed on the lows for today, and then in the after hours, we bounced just a little bit. But for the Qs, I think we're going to continue lower. Why? Well, if you look back in the past, at the times when the Qs have closed below that 20-period moving average, you can see on each and every one of those instances, the Qs dropped to a lower level. And so each time, that's 100% by the way, each time the Qs crossed and closed below the 20-period moving average, it went lower. So I think we're going to see the same thing take place. So while we did hit my downside target, I'm going to extend that downside target just a little bit until Friday, because I think we're going a little bit lower to test the lows down there at 476.81. These are the lows that I'm referring to here from mid-June and early July right here. So I think we're moving down. So 476.81 is the new downside target for the Qs, and you can see SPY is on its way to hitting my downside target of 550.07. I'm keeping that in place mainly because if you look at the stochastic, we crossed with an absolute sell signal and a very clear sell signal on the CCI. If you're not a fan of the CCI, which is the Commodity Channel Index, I would certainly consider putting that on your charts because it is my favorite, but one of the most accurate buy-sell indicators that you're going to find. When the oscillator goes into an overbought condition, that is by definition a reading over 100, but when it crosses below the 100 line, that's when we get the sell-offs. And you can see that's exactly what happened back here and even back early on in April. So that is still a downside target in place. Like I said before, reiterate that at 550.07. You can see that we moved up to the high side target that I had from the week before last up there right around 566, and then we pulled back from there. So again, downside target 550.07. Moving on to the VIX, very interesting to see that not only did we hit my upside target that I kept in place for a while at 1362, but the momentum is continuing higher. So I'm going to extend the VIX just by a hair because I think while we could go higher on the VIX into tomorrow and Friday, I think eventually we're going to pull back and pivot lower. So in other words, you could say this is point A. Once we pivot back from that higher level, we could label that as a B, which in turn would bring it back to a lower C and then a pivot to a higher D. So there's your A, B, C, D pattern as I'm forecasting that. go into the description box below and you will see some of my recordings from when I talked about the ABCD pattern, so you get a good lesson out of that. And thank you, the brand new subscribers. Thank you so much. You're getting so much more content when you come on to this channel, and I continue to push that out as a value add each and every week, especially on Fridays. I try to put more value in there. Now, speaking of value, if you're looking at /BTC, which is the Bitcoin futures, you'll know from following my page on X, we hit my upside target of 66,000 today, and I reestablished a new downside target for Bitcoin at 60,500. Look at the hinge on the CCI. You see it's in an overbought condition, and it's starting to move lower. The reason I put that downside target at 60,500 is because we have an open gap down there, so I'm being conservative with that downside target, at which time, once the gap fills, I think Bitcoin could pivot right back up. So we have a lot of trading opportunity in Bitcoin and the Bitcoin related stocks such as Mara, Coin, Ethereum, and BITO, which is another ETF that you could trade Bitcoin. And so if you're trading these instruments, again, outside of the Bitcoin product itself, you could do very, very well following the charts. Now, tonight from 6 to 7, I have my rapid fire stock analysis session where I'm going to go over at least 60 stocks in that 60 minutes. Stay tuned for that. If you're interested, you could sign up for a free 2-week membership. We don't even take credit cards with that because we don't play that game of taking your credit card and then billing you if you don't cancel later on. We don't play that game. You get a free 2-week session with us in our membership so you can get all the trade publications, get my analysis, get my education, get the videos. Then if you want to subscribe and hang on to that membership, it's up to you to do that. We don't obligate you in any way by taking your credit card. So thank you so much again for liking, sharing, subscribing. You know the drill. When you make those comments, you push the algorithm out, and that helps us get more exposure. So thank you, and I'll talk to you on Friday. So long.